Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Long time back in South Africa, there was rampant discrimination against black people. The system was called apartheid. Apartheid is a political system of racial discrimination, not providing equal education or employment opportunities. Even sitting together was not permitted. Have you heard of Nelson Mandela? Do you know anything about his work? Why is he so famous? Nelson Mandela spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid in South Africa. Mandela had to spend 30 years in prison, but finally in 1994, finally there were democratic elections and Mandela was able to form a democratic government. Mandela has written his autobiography by the name of Long Walk to Freedom. This book is very detailed. It's his own story from birth till death. Tells all about his childhood, his school, his youth, his struggle, his life in prison. All those stories are in it. But today we're not going to talk about the entire book. We're going to take one chapter from it. This part is about the first democratic elections in South Africa and making of democratic government. Earlier there was only the white supremacy, but Mandela fought against it and got a democratic system in place where all people could work together. On 10th May 1994, Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. On that day, several newspapers covered his story. You can see it on your book. You can also see it here. What was the news about? It said, Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule, where no black people were ever allowed. Now all that is over. South Africa has many political parties. One of these parties, called African National Congress, or ANC, which is Mandela's own party, won 252 out of 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history, and they formed the government. All major politicians and international leaders from various countries, 140 countries around the world, they came to witness the occasion, this major change of power. They came to congratulate Nelson Mandela. On that day, Mandela announced to the world that never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by the other. That day, more than 1 lakh people, South African men, women, and children of all races, came together celebrating the end of 300 years of oppression. They were singing and dancing with joy. This was a historic occasion. Now, I would be signing Mandela's own life story, the topic that we have picked for today. So when you look at me, think of me as Mandela himself. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been surrounded by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. These ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater found by Union Buildings. This inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy. No black was ever allowed nearby. But now all that was to change. Now it was a beautiful gathering of different colors and nations. It all looked like the beautiful colors of a rainbow. On that lovely morning, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. On that podium, Mr. de Klerk was sworn in as second deputy president. Then Thabo Beki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution, to devote myself to the well being of the Republic and its people. To all the assembled guests and people watching all over the world, I said, today, all of us do by our presence here confer glory and hope to the newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We, who were the outlaws not so long ago, have today been given this rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all our distinguished international guests for having come to take possessions with the people of a country. What is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, and for human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never, never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopter, troop carriers, All of them came in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of precision and military force, but a demonstration of military's loyalty to democracy, to the new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of South African Defence Force and police, the chest bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of black, red, green, blue, gold of new South African flag. The day was symbolized for me by playing of our two national anthems. The Vision of White singing their own anthem and the black singing the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. On that day of inauguration, I was truly overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of 20th century, a few years after the Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned people of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned people of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of 20th century, and my own eighth decade as a man, that system has been overturned forever, and a new system has replaced it, recognized the rights and freedom of all people, regardless of the color of their skin. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of people, people whose suffering and courage can never be counted, can never be repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. That long and noble line ended, and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them, that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had brought today. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, maybe generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced great black leaders, as you can see on your right. Men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depth of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil: gold, diamond, oil, many, many. But I've always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I've learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking. I have learned that courage was not absence of fear, but triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. No one is born hating another person because of the color of the skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. In life, every man has twin obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations. But in a country like South Africa, for a black man, it was impossible to fulfill both of these obligations. In South Africa, a man of color like me, who attempted to live life as a human being, was punished, isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free, free in every way that I could know, free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars, and free to ride broad backs of slow moving bulls. As long as I obeyed my father and my tribe, I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken away from me, that I began to hunger for it. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. Freedom of being able to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I choose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying, having a family, the freedom of not being obstructed in a lawful life. But then slowly, I saw that not only I was not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, ANC. And that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that transformed a law abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. I am no more virtuous than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedom that I was allowed when I knew that my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. And the chains on all of my people were the chains on me. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow mindedness. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I'm not free when my freedom is taken from me. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity.